And I should like to reflect today with you about my home, or I should say my homes in St. Louis at Whitehaven. Uh, in just a space of 2 or 3 years, I moved 3 times. When I first got back to Whitehaven and rejoined Julia and my 2 children, we lived at Whitehaven, the home where she was born, and the plantation that her father and mother had. And we were there for several months. I was busy clearing timber, cutting logs, putting in a farm. Now, Mr. Dent, Colonel Dent, had given Julia as a wedding gift 60 acres. But it might be noteworthy to you to know that he didn't actually deed the land over to her. He kept title ownership of the land. He just gave her 60 acres. And that is because he didn't trust me. You see, if he had given my wife the land officially with the title given to us, it would have been legally my property. And he was concerned that I might sell it. He had little to no confidence in me, didn't really care much for me. So he kept the property, and I was working my wife's property. It was not a comfortable situation for me there. Colonel Dent did not care much for me, particularly given my past. He had tried to warn Julia about marrying an Army officer and not living in the style to which she had become accustomed. But nevertheless, she'd done it. She stayed there while I was in the Pacific Northwest. Now I'm back. I'm 32 years old when I come back. I've got her as a wife and 2 children, and I have, as you would say, no prospects except to farm and work my wife's land. He never missed an opportunity to chide me or make a comment, and it was not comfortable for me to live at Whitehaven. I wanted to move out. Now, Julia's brother, Lewis, had gone to California with the gold rush and wound up, as I've said in our earlier reflections, he'd started a trading post and a general store and a ferry there in California, and actually was becoming quite a prominent judge as well. He had built 1.5 miles from Whitehaven his home, and he called it Wish-Ton-Wish, which is Indian for whippoorwill, in the middle of an oak forest, very pastoral setting, lovely home. And it was empty. And he had communicated with Julia and asked that we actually take up residence in Wish-Ton-Wish and live there to make sure the house was cared for. I was enthusiastic about that, and Julia liked Wish-Ton-Wish as well. So in the spring, late spring of 55, I moved into Wish-Ton-Wish, and we were there comfortably settled when our third child, our daughter, Ellen, whom we called Nellie, she's named after her grandmother, Julia's mother. Ellen was born on the 4th of July. So we were now a family of 3 children. And I am 1.5 miles away from Colonel Dent in Whitehaven. The farm, the 60 acres, is about 1 mile away from where we are now living, all on the area of the plantation. Now, I've been cutting wood and clearing land, heavily forested oak forest, and I'm trying to clear land to have a farm. And I've also got to have some kind of income. So I'm selling wood at $4 the cord in St. Louis. Also, there are mines, coal mines in the area, and they needed timber to shore up the tunnels that they were digging. So I got into cutting staves and supports for the coal mines and made quite a bit of money doing that, although I never made more than $50 a month in selling the cord wood. But every minute that I was cutting wood was a minute that I was not spending on plowing and farming. But I had to have a cash income and I had to clear the farm. So I'm caught between the rock and a hard place. I was able to get from Charlie Ford, a friend of mine from Sackett's Harbor, where I had been stationed, a pair of horses from the United Express Agency Railroad freight. I got Tom and Bill, and I cleared land. Now, I am also now, since I'm at Wish Done Wish, clearing timber to build my own home. And to do that, I've got to cut the tree, trim it, clean it, put it up on blocks for it to dry, because it takes a good year for the wood to cure before it can be used to build. So I'm doing all of these different activities and quite busy. Well, the progress on the house went along well. The farm, I was doing so with the farming. And in the summer of late summer of 56, I now have the timber ready to build my own home. And we had a house raising. Let all the neighbors know about it. In the late summer of 56, we did the house raising for our home that I called Hard Scrabble. And I called it a lighthearted manner, Hard Scrabble. Julia called it Hard Scrabble because she didn't like it. Julia never wanted to live there. She would ask me, why do you want to leave a nice home like Wish Done Wish and move into a log cabin? And I wanted to build a clapboard side home, but her father, Colonel Dent, insisted that I build a log cabin, and I acquiesced and I built a log cabin. It was crude in appearance, but I was very happy with it. It was a dog trot type structure. We'd enclosed the dog trot, the central hallway. It had a dining room and a sitting room on the bottom floor. The top floor had 3 bedrooms, 2 fairly large and 1 small one that was over the staircase going up to the second floor. I was very pleased with it. Julia, as I came to find out later, hated it. And I was able to survey my home, and at last, I've got my own home with my wife and 3 children. And I'm still trying to put in the crop. I'm still going into St. Louis frequently to sell the wood, to try to make some money because I had no cash income. I had tried to get loans from my father. He had promised me $1,000 when I first got to Whitehaven back in 54, and that never came. He liked to tell people he financed me, but he didn't. And I asked him again for twice more for a loan of $500 at 10% per annum interest. He never gave me any money. As it turns out, though, in January of 57, January 14th of 57, Julia's mother died, Miss Ellen Renshaw Dent died. She'd been sick about a month. And we, at that time, moved back into Whitehaven. So I'm always amused about the hoopla about Hard Scrabble and the log cabin home, but I only lived there about 3 months, from fall of 56 into early 57. And then I was back in Whitehaven. And we stayed there for several months. Colonel Dent had wanted us to move back into Whitehaven because with his wife gone and all of his children gone except the youngest girl, Ellen, he was very lonely. And ultimately, in late 57, early 58, he moved into their townhome in St. Louis. And Julia and I then rented Whitehaven. So we've gone from Whitehaven to Hard Scrabble, or to Wish Time Wish, Whitehaven to Wish Time Wish to Hard Scrabble, and back to Whitehaven from August of 54 into spring of 57. So I was always, it would seem, on the move. And we rented Whitehaven from Colonel Dent, and I was able to put in another, as I recall, 250 acres of farmland. I was very pleased. I had the house to myself without his observations, which were acidic, and I was able to greatly increase the size of the farming area that I could work. As it turned out, it was to no avail, but I still was optimistic at that point in 57, trying to work it and be a successful Missouri farmer. So those are the homes that I lived in the time frame that I lived in, that could be termed musical houses. I should like to remind you, though, that Hard Scrabble, as large as it may loom in my life, I only lived there about 3 months. I liked it. Julia hated it. And I found myself back at Whitehaven, where I had started when I first got back to St. Louis.